2022, and Ukraine was under attack. Russian forces launched a full-scale invasion of the country, bringing war to Europe for the first time in decades.
Millions of families were terrified about what would happen to them.
They had to flee their homes to find somewhere safe to live, and many of them came to neighboring countries like Poland.
My parents are now in Ukraine and they stay there to defend our country. We try to be calm and we believe in our country and in our soldiers a lot.
In this special edition of FYI, we're hearing from Ukrainian families whose lives have been ripped apart by war.
And we're following them on their long journeys to reach safety, leaving behind their loved ones.
I'm terrified of the thought that someday I will call them and they will not respond.
This is the first time I've seen for myself what war looks like away from the front line. Children, sometimes on their own, traveling across a continent to seek safety. The main crossing point for people escaping from the war zone is the village of Medica in Poland.
Over there, just beyond the border post is Ukraine, and you can just see this flow of people desperate to reach safety.
From February onwards, millions of people have made this journey. I've seen them arriving here frightened and worried about what will happen to the loved ones they've left behind.
Very, very worried. I trying to text them every day, every hour, because they're very scary message from news channels in Kiev. It's like Kiev bombs. It's very scary.
Many of them have been through so much just to get here, witnessing terrible things during their long journeys.
Sometimes there are friends from Poland who are here to meet them, and we've seen some emotional reunions. But there are also people in need of help from complete strangers.
To see this mass movement of people, it's really eye-opening. I mean, I'd seen pictures and videos on TV, of course, but to actually be here and witness it in person feels completely different. I mean, these people have been through the absolute worst experiences, witnessing war all around them, and I can just see in their faces how exhausted they all are.
Susanna, from a Polish scout group, is one of the people who've been helping out. Always with a friendly smile to make the refugees feel welcome and safe.
We are so upset, but we don't want to show them to people because we want them to be braver. We are smiling and we try to give them our good energy. There are like one kid and she was in tears when I was giving her sweets, and she gave me chocolate because she wanted to give me like a present for to thank me for this.
It's really the little things, and people are just doing whatever they can to help anyone in any way. I mean, to carry bags, donating anything, and just giving out little toys and doing anything they can to cheer up a kid who, you know, should never have had to witness any of the things they've seen.
In a nearby town, a reception centre has been set up in an old supermarket. It's a place where the refugees can rest and look for advice on finding somewhere to live. We found a banker from London who was volunteering as a chef in one of the food tents.
It's a real eye-opener. Like, I'm absolutely devastated. The inside of that Tesco's, when we went in there around midnight, 1 a.m, there were kids still awake, but most of them are lined up along the sides. Like, imagine your grocery counter full of kids just asleep in their winter clothes. And it hit around -5, -6 last night. It really was not a nice experience.
Seeing the welcome that refugees have been given from people all over Europe is great, but don't be fooled into thinking that it's easy being a refugee.
Through no fault of their own, these families have lost everything. Their homes, their possessions, their schools, their security. Near the railway station, we met 17-year-old Elia who'd been travelling for 20 hours with her 8-year-old niece, Irina, and a friend with a 1-year-old. They were cold and exhausted, so we took them into a cafe for something to eat. Then Elia told us why she decided to flee her home in the Ukrainian city of Kharkiv.
We heard the bomb attack somewhere far away from our house, but then it was like growing louder and louder. My parents and I we just couldn't leave because of our grandparents, and it was impossible, but then the missile hit our house. Our 9th floor was destroyed, and that was the moment when I realized that I gotta go, and I just couldn't leave my parents alone, but I had no other choice.
So what was it like having to leave your parents behind?
It's kind of hard for me even to think of it, because I have tears in my eyes, because I don't know, it was like the most terrifying experience that I ever had. And when you just need to look in your parents' eyes, when you gotta leave without them, and they don't know how your way will be and with who you will be and where, I don't know, but I guess it makes it easier that we have our phones and we just can connect, but I'm terrified of the thought that someday I will call them and they will not respond.
I just can't imagine what that must be like. Always worrying about your mum and dad and whether or not they're okay in a city that's been under constant attack. Elia's big dream was to come to the UK to study international relations at university. But for now, at least, that ambition has been put on hold.
Because of all of this happening, my dreams are just crushed. They are just destroyed.
A Polish man we met in the cafe offered to give the group a lift to the city of Wrocław, more than 5 hours away. We've all been told about stranger danger at school. So just like all the people we featured in this programme, we checked him out and saw that he just wanted to help. And not only did he drive them to Wrocław, he also gave them money to help them find somewhere to live. I kept in touch with Elia, and you'll see how she got on later. With Ukrainian men asked to stay behind to defend their country, nearly all the refugees are mums and their children. But in the city of Krakow, we met 12-year-old Vadim and his 18-year-old sister Katerina, who were trying to reach friends in another country, Slovakia. Their parents, like many others, had stayed behind in Ukraine.
They stay there to defend our country. They wanted for us to come here. It's really bad. So I must say that we have really war in our country. Children can't do nothing. So I really beg adults to protest in such way, in anything, to stop this war, to stop this really bad thing in our country.
We were so worried about Katerina and Vadim, so we decided to keep in touch with them.
And 2 weeks on from their difficult journey to Slovakia, I've arranged to hook up with them on my laptop. Hi Katerina, so how are you after that long journey from Ukraine?
I must say that we are almost okay. We are safe anyway, and it's better for us to stay here now than in Ukraine, unfortunately. I just can't choose words to say thank you very much because this support is very huge, and it's a great thing that people from all the world support Ukrainian in a terrible time for us.
Well, we're so glad that you're safe now. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Not everyone who crosses the border from Ukraine has somewhere safe to stay. Back at the refugee reception centre, we met 13-year-old Sasha and his mum Karina, who'd arrived in Poland with no idea where they would live.
I want to wake up and don't hear guns, rockets and so on. That's why we come here.
Luckily, they spotted a sign on a car. This couple had driven 1,000 miles from their home in the Netherlands to offer refugees a place to stay.
We can bring them to Holland and give them a good stay over there for a long period.
Once again, we wanted to make sure that Sasha and Karina would be safe with the Dutch couple. And after all the adults discussed their offer of help, it was decided they would travel to the Netherlands.
I'm very happy. It's just amazing.
They had a long journey ahead of them. And a few weeks later, we found out Sasha and Karina were really well. After a few weeks living with the Dutch couple, they moved into a hostel in the city of Leiden. Also making a long journey, these refugees were heading to Denmark.
They will have almost likely never been to Denmark, but the Danish government is offering them a safe place to stay.
I've heard that it's not been so easy for refugees who want to come to the UK. But to get to Denmark, there were no forms to fill in, and the process happened within just a few hours of them crossing the border into Poland. The journey to reach Denmark took 15 hours through the night. But at the other end, safety, and the promise of a comfortable home for as long as they needed it. It's the countries neighbouring Ukraine that have taken in most of the refugees. That's Moldova, Romania, Hungary, Slovakia, and Poland. As for the UK, well, our government did also agree to take in thousands of families. But there's been anger that the process to let people in has been too slow and too difficult. It's a criticism I put to the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, when Braden and I met him in Downing Street.
We've got an amazing record as a country for taking people in. We're seeing massive generosity already by the British people.
But I know that the visa application process is really, really complicated, so how are you going to make it easier?
Some people have said, well, you should get rid of checks altogether and you should just let people in without any checks. I just don't think that is practical because at the moment, if you look at what's happening in Ukraine, it is a nightmare. You've got a lot of people who aren't necessarily who they say they are. Some fast checks I do think are sensible, but I think getting rid of checks altogether is not a good idea.
There was just one more person I wanted to catch up with. 2 weeks after she arrived in the city of Wrocław, I wanted to meet Elia again to see what had happened to her.
So how has life been for you since moving to Wrocław?
Well, I was just trying to forget all of the nightmare things that I've been through. When you see the sky with no missiles and with no smoke, of course you can understand that it's like a different world. And of course you can believe it till the moment when you realize that your family is still in this other universe that you've left.
I know that you were really worried about your parents. So how are they and how's their home city right now?
Now it's almost destroyed. And all of the buildings I used to look at when I was younger, nothing of this is existing right now. It's just destroyed. But I know that my parents are staying positive. They tell me that everything's be okay and the missile won't touch them anyways because it already did. And they say that missiles don't hit one place 2 times. And it's the only thing that I hope will work out and that it is true and that they will be safe till the end of all of this.
I know you've just had your 18th birthday. It must have been so strange without your parents around.
Yeah, of course, but it was like lightened with the fact that I heard their voices.
Yeah.
I heard their voices and they were safe and sound and it was like the best birthday present that I ever got. So yeah.
Have you been able to make any decisions about your future?
The decision is just not to give up.
Yeah.
And just to keep my chin up and to set up new goals and achieve them.
Well, I think you're so strong and I really do hope that you get to go to the UK and study.
Thank you.
It was great to meet Elia again, and maybe with her determination not to let the war crush her dreams, she can play a role in helping Ukraine to have a peaceful future. But in the meantime, the nightmare goes on for the Ukrainian people. Families remain separated, and people continue to cross the border just to find somewhere safe to live.
I can only imagine what it must be like for the refugees here, having their whole lives turned upside down overnight. None of these people ever thought that this would happen to them, and we've got to do what we can to help. This is 2022 and we're in Europe. This shouldn't be happening. It really should not be happening.